Hello. So today I thought I would show you how I did this effect. It's quite simple. I used some PaperArtsy Infusions and a water reactive fineliner. When I say water reactive, it's just a non-permanent one. The permanent ones are things like the Microns. They don't work for this. You can use them further on in the technique, but to set off with, you want ones that aren't permanent. The way to test them is basically get a piece of paper, scribble with them, put your finger in water, rub it across. If it smudges, that's what you want. These are just from the works. They're just cheap ones. I think it's about £4 for about 10, something like that. But any make that's not permanent would work. I'm going to use these colours here. I think there's Rusty Car, the Sage, and there may have been a little bit of the Sunset one. They're darker colours, autumny colours, but I wanted to try a paler colour palette. So I'm going to use Golden Sands Infusions, a bit Jaded, which is my new favourite one. It's absolutely wonderful, and Emerald Isle. I think those will go rather well. So I'll set that aside for a minute. I've got some watercolour card. These come ready cut to A6, but you could cut up an A4 piece. It's got a little bit of texture, but basically any mixed media or watercolour card would do. I've got a little palette, which I'm going to put some of my infusions into the little wells. You only need a tiny bit, that's probably too much. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of water. That one doesn't work. I'll do it with a dropper, and you can just get as much as you want. And you can see the lovely colours that you get once you hydrate them. Oops. Right, so I'll let those just mix. I'm trying out a new lighting system. I've got a ring light which I'm just trying to see if it works. The only problem is if I use it on my glass mat, I get this big white circle of light in the background, which is rather distracting. So I'm using just a waterproof tablecloth just to see if that works, just to take away the glare. But it's quite a bold pattern, so I'm not sure. You'll have to let me know what you think. Anyway, back to what we're doing. So I've got my non-permanent fine liner, and I'm just going to doodle straight onto there. Just a leaf. Obviously you can vary whatever leaf you want. Let's see, now I'll have a medium paintbrush, I think, because it's quite a small leaf. I've got some water as well here. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit of the green and just put a little bit of the green on. And as you can see, where you touch the non-permanent marker, it hydrates it and you get a little bit of shading. So I'm being quite generous with the amount of water I'm putting on. Click my brush a bit. And we'll go into this one, which is a little bit jaded, which is nice. I'll just dither that about. And I'm not being precious, I'm just applying the colour and letting it sort of merge with what was already there. I quite like this with the emerald, I think it's quite nice. Clean my brush again, and then while it's still wet we'll have a little bit of the golden sands. Now you can see as I'm building these up, I'm not going with a complete sort of colour block like I did with the first two. I'm just dithering about with a bit of the golden sands. And it's sort of doing its own thing. It's doing its own organic mixing thing. If you get too much, if you think there's way too much water or way too much colour, a little cotton bud will just take it away. You can just remove it a bit. Really into autumn leaves at the moment, so I think I need a little bit more. Colour there. I'll have a little bit more green in there, I think. And because autumn leaves are sort of quite patchy, that's the look I'm going for, so the watercolour card is allowing it to spread quite organically, so that's what I want. Right, I'm just going to dry that a little bit, not a lot but just a little bit, because I don't want it completely fluid, but I do want it not completely dry. So I'll just blast it for a second or two. Right, that's it. Now this is the bit that I absolutely love. Just checking it's dry enough. I've got this little mini mister, and it is quite a fine mini mister. I think it's a Crafter's Companion one. It's quite a fine spray, and I'm going to go quite a long way away from my leaf, but I'm just going to give it a spritz. And you can see what happens. It moves. I absolutely love the effect that it gives when it starts to move. If you want a little bit more of the colour to move, sometimes you just have to hold it down because it does curl, obviously. You can just pick up a bit of the colour and dab it into the edge. and it will move out a little. This hasn't actually moved as much as I wanted it to. It is a bit uncontrollable. As you can see, it's moved a little bit, but not a lot. I don't want to spritz it again, because I think if I do, I'll take that away because that's just a bit distracting. It'll move too much. I don't want it to be completely a blur. I want it to still have a little bit of definition. Saying that, I might just give it one last blast. Probably regret this. But we'll see. Right, so I'm going to switch the camera off. I don't dry it with the heat gun at this point because you lose the organic shapes of how it's travelled. I tend to just let it do its thing. You can tap it sometimes to move it. So I'll dry it, leave it to dry, and then I'll come back. Right, so we're back. It's dry. It could do to be a little bit drier, but it's fine. And I'm going to use my Micron pen because this one is permanent. And I can see my leaf. I can see where the stem was. I'm not going to be precious about it. I'm just going to go back over. Now, that's not a wide enough one. Let's see, we'll have a 0.5 one. There we are. As you can see, it's just a case of redefining the leaves. I tend to go over a couple of times, but not exactly in the same place. It gives it a more artistic look. There we are. Just before I washed my brush, I did some little splatters just of the golden sands, so I'm just going to just highlight some of those, just for a little bit of a sense of movement. Yeah, I think we're nearly there. That's it. I'm going to do a little bit of a border. And I purposely don't try and be straight. I don't use a ruler. Just gives it a bit of a border. We'll have a couple of little dashes like that. On the original, I think I did some stitch effect, so we'll go else did we do? I think that was about it. If I wanted, I could go back in and add some more colour, which I think I might do. I might just put a little bit more of the a bit jaded in. A little bit of the golden sands. For that sort of mottled, distressed look that you get on autumn leaves. Just wondering if I ought to have a little bit darker colour. No, I think we'll leave it at that. So I'll just knock that back a little. Need a little bit more. That's quite strong, but I quite like it. Got a little bit of it here, but I quite like that. I think I need a bit more. I need a bit more stronger colour. You just keep working until you're happy with it, really. I love this colour, a little bit jaded. Just a few more splatters and then we'll let that dry again. Right, so we've got this far. I'm quite happy with that. It's just about dry, I think. I've added some, you saw me add some of the a bit jaded splatters, which I really like. Now the next bit is optional. This is adding the little highlights, the white highlights. I actually thought it looked a little bit like frost or snow on the autumn leaves. It's up to you. I like them with or without. So where I've doodled and I've got extra little gaps at the side here, this is where I tend to just put a little bit of white pen. Only a little bit, not a vast amount, not very thick. I'm hardly touching the pen to the paper. It just gives a little bit of lightness in some areas. And as I say, it's completely optional. If you don't want to do this bit, you don't have to do. Sometimes I'm in two minds as to whether I like it or not. It's important to put a little bit on the stem as well as on the leaves. It just makes it a bit more cohesive. And sometimes your white gel pen will suck up the colour from your infusions if they aren't completely dry. But that's quite nice because it dulls it down a little bit. Yeah, so that's our leaves done. I need to add a little bit more interest in the background. And I have my favourite, one of my favourite PaperArtsy stamps, this one, MN124. It's just a script stamp and I love it. It just gives a little bit of visual texture to the background. And so we'll go with, yeah, I think we'll go with Vintage Photo. Yeah. We could go with Vintage Photo or we could go with Hickory Smoke. Hickory Smoke might be better because we haven't really got any browns in there. We'll go with, and this is Distress Archival ink, so it's permanent. Just wondering if I should put something underneath just so I don't get it all over my mat. I'm just going to go in at the side. Yeah, that's nice. It just takes the blankness away a little bit. Yeah, I think that's enough. Made a bit of a boo-boo there because that is not straight. And while I'm on, I will use the same ink and just go around the edges. Just brings it in a little bit. Alright, that's that. Get rid of that. So there we have it. It's completely different colours to the other one, but I like that. I'll bring the other one in to compare. I think I still prefer the autumnal one, but it's different and I like it, so it would sit quite nicely on a card like that. The backgrounds to these cards, this is some rusty tissue. I have a video quite a while ago on creating that. Then once I'd done all my leaves, because there's a set of about 6 of these, I had some infusions left. So I just splattered them and dipped them, some more watercolour card, into them so that I got a background using the same colours. And then I dried that and used that in the background with some book pages. My image that I've done, and this is a part of a quote from a set of Alison Bomber stamps, which is, let's see, EAB21 from PaperArtsy. They're lovely, absolutely lovely quotes, and that's just on part of a book page. Last little thing which I just thought I'd experiment with and I've decided I like. I've got a Micron pen. It's a 0.1, so it's very, very fine. and I'm just randomly following the Infusions little puddles, and I'm just going round and highlighting them. So it just gives a bit more definition to some of the little areas of Infusions. But I'm hardly touching the pen to the paper, so it's only just going round them. And I'm not being too precious about it. So it just gives them a little bit more interest. I think I quite like that. So I'll create the background card for this, and then I'll take a photo and add it at the end. Right, so I've got the finished card. As I said with the other one, I just used up the Infusions on some watercolour card to make a background. I've got the scraps left over here. Some nice little scraps. I particularly love that one. But this is what it looked like. I just used them up on the watercolour card. So that is the background layer. There. Then there's some book pages out of an old diary. There's my leaf panel, which I should have flattened it out underneath a book before I glued it on. A little stamped banner, that was another scrap of this background paper, and I used a stamp set by Seth Apter for PaperArtsy. They'll probably all fall off because I've cut them up. This one. Eclectic, it's a mini EM66. It comes as a block. They all come together, but I cut them apart because I like to use them like this. And if I want them back together, I can just put them back together on my acrylic block and stamp them as a block. But mostly I tend to use them separately. So that's just on a scrap of this background card and glued on. You'll notice I haven't put the rusty tissue and the rusty paper clip as with this one, because it's a different feel. This was sort of really autumnal and quite sort of rusty colours. So the paper clip and this book page paper and the rusty paper went well with it. This I thought was a lighter feel, so I've gone for a white card blank and sort of a paler background and a paler overall look. It's sort of the beginnings of autumn before they really turn to the oranges and reds and golds. It's greens and golds. So I thought that was a nice alternative.